Hi, in this tutorial we are going to create a so-called CRUD application using PHP and MySQL database. We will create this CRUD application step by step. So here is the contents of this tutorial. First a short introduction, then we are going to set up the MySQL database, then we are going to connect to that MySQL database from PHP. Then we are going to perform and create these CRUD operations. CRUD is short for create, read, update and delete data in a MySQL database or other types of databases. So basically we are going to create different pages in PHP where we are creating data or inserting data into the MySQL database. We are going to read data from the MySQL database, and we are going to update existing data, and we are also going to delete data that are stored in the database. Basically, we will take it step by step. We will start by reading data, the R in the CRUD operation. Then we are going to create data, C in the CRUD operation. Then we are going to update data, the U in the CRUD operation. And then finally, we are going to delete data in the database as well, the D in the CRUD operation. And finally, some summary and further work. So let's get started. Let's start with an introduction. So we are going to create a CRUD web application using the PHP web development programming language and the MySQL database. We are going to create a CRUD application. CRUD means create, read, update and delete. And that means that this web application that we are going to create with PHP should retrieve data from the database, insert data, update data and delete data from the MySQL database. I will go through these 4 steps in the CRUD operations step by step by creating this PHP web application. So MySQL is a popular relation database system. It's free and open source, so you can use it for free if you install it on your local computer. Typically you want to host this PHP environment and MySQL on a server. You can install and host it by yourself, or you can use one of the many hosting services where they provide both PHP environment and MySQL environment. The MySQL databases system using something called SQL. This is a programming language used for database system. It's short for structured query language. And also the combination of PHP and MySQL is very popular because both PHP and MySQL is free to use. And by combining PHP with MySQL and creating so-called, if you know how to create so-called CRUD applications, where you create, read, update and delete data from a database, you can create quite powerful web applications by just knowing these steps, how to communicate with a MySQL database and insert, update, retrieve and delete data from that database. Here you see the final application that we are going to create in this tutorial. So this is the final application that we will have created when we are finished with this tutorial, but we will take it step by step. Basically we are going to create a book application where I will retrieve some books that are stored in the database, as you see here in this page. And then you can click on the new book button here, and then a new web page created with PHP will pop up like this, where you can enter information regarding creating a new book, and when you click save, that information will be stored in the MySQL database. And then after saving, it will go back to this main page where it lists the different books that are stored in the database, and the book that you create here will also pop up here in this list. And then next you can click on the update book button, and the book that you select here will then be updated. So then when you click update book, this web page will pop up where the information that is stored in the database will be shown. So if you click on this first one here, update book here, then title will be web apps, author will be Elvis Presley and topic will be programming, and then you can change either the title, author on topic and save, and then when you click on the save button, this updated information will be updated in the database, and the application will go back to this main page where it shows the updated list of available books that are stored in the database. Finally, if you click on the delete book button, the book that you select will be entirely deleted from the database. So we will create this application step by step. So in order to create that application, we need some software and some tools. Of course, we will need the PHP programming language. We will need a web server, typically where you have PHP installed and this MySQL server database. You can set up this web server with PHP and MySQL by yourself, or you can use an existing provider. In my case, I will use an existing provider, but it's up to you. Either if you want to install and create your own web server, it's a bit more complicated than using an existing provider. We will use the Visual Studio Code editor in order to create the PHP code. And in order to transfer or upload the PHP files to the web server, we typically need to use an FTP program. I will use a tool called WinSCP. So in addition to PHP, we also need this MySQL database. And in order to typically set up the database, create tables, etc., you typically want to use this PHP MyAdmin tool. It's a free and open source administration tool for this MySQL database. And if you set up an environment or use an existing provider, typically the web server will consist PHP, MySQL, and this PHP MyAdmin tool. So before we start creating the PHP CRUD application, we need to set up the MySQL database. So for that, we typically want to use that tool, PHP MyAdmin. Basically, it's just a web application created in PHP, and you can use that to set up and configure the database. Here you can create new tables. You can run queries, as you see an example of here, etc. For this basic tutorial, we are going to create one single table called book, containing of these columns: book ID, title, author, and topic. So we will use this PHP MyAdmin in order to create that table. Typically, we also want to have some data inside this table, so we can start creating the web application. So we will just put in some dummy books into the book table, and then we use ordinary SQL queries like this: insert into book, title, author, topic, and values, and some name for the title, a name for the author, and a name for the for the topic, like this. So this script here will insert 1, 2, 3 different books in this book table. So let's go to this PHP MyAdmin tool to create the book table and insert this data. Here I have opened my PHP MyAdmin tool. Of course, you will have an other address than me, but this is the tool that is hosted on my web server. So here on the left side you have the different tables that I have created. So let's create this new book table. Then I just go to my PowerPoint, just copy this text here, go back to this PHP MyAdmin tool, click on SQL, and then just paste in this code. And then here in the bottom I can click on the Go button, and then you see the book table has been created. So far it's empty, but the table itself is created with book ID, title, author, and topic. Then I go back to my PowerPoint, copy this SQL script that inserts some dummy data. I go back to SQL here and paste it in like this. Click on the Go button, and if I now click on the book table, 3 books has been created with title, web apps, IoT and cloud, and C#, like this. So far we have been setting up our MySQL database. We have been creating a table called book, and some data has been inserted into that table. So now we are ready to start to see if we are able to connect to that database from the PHP programming environment. In order to communicate and connect to a database from PHP, we can use two different approaches. One is called MySQL CRUD. This approach only works together with MySQL databases. Another approach is called PDO. This option will also work for many other types of database systems. In this tutorial I will use this approach, but this one can also be used. More relevant information regarding these two, you can find it just googling this information. Then you will find more relevant information whether you should choose this one or this one, but basically this is probably the simplest approach, using this MySQL CRUD. Since I'm also going to use MySQL, this is a safe choice to use, but this one is can also be used. And then after we are connected to the database, we need to start creating these CRUD operations to create or insert data into the database, read, or as we call it in SQL, select data from the database, and update and delete data from the database. And in order to do this operation, we need to use this language called SQL, short for Structured Query Language. So we use this to create queries, and those queries can then be divided into 4 parts, either writing, reading, updating, or deleting data from the database. Here you see an example of a query that are retrieving or getting data from a database. Select book ID, title, author, topic from book, the book table like this. Here you see the 4 different alternatives. In order to insert data, we use this insert statement, as in this example. Insert into, here is another table called student, insert into student, and the name of the different columns and the actual values. If you want to retrieve information from that, from a table called school, you can use that like this. Select school ID, name from school, or like this, select all, meaning you want to get all the different columns from the school table. And here you also use the where to specify you only want to retrieve values where the school ID is larger than 100. If you want to update information that are stored in, for instance, the student table, you can use like this, update student set name, and then the new name you want to change. Here also you typically use a where statement, like, so you only want to change the name for the student that has the student ID equal to number 2 like this. Finally, if you want to delete, you use the delete command, delete from student where school ID equals to 3 or something. So these are the 4 CRUD operations: insert, select, update, and delete. So in order to connect to the database from PHP, we can create the following PHP code. We can use one of the built-in functions in PHP called MySQLi_connect, and that one needs the following arguments: the server name. If the server MySQL database is on the same computer as PHP, you can just use localhost, then the username, password, and the name of the database like this. And then you will retrieve a message back, either connection failed or connection successfully. So let's go to Visual Studio Code and create this code to see if we are able to connect to our database. Then I will open my Visual Studio Code editor to create this code. I'll go to my PowerPoint just to copy this code in order to save some time. And then I just create a new file here and paste this code in like this. So now I have pasted in the code for connecting to my SQL database. So then I need to specify the server name. Here I just typically specify localhost, since my server is on the same web server as the PHP. Then I need to specify my database name, my username and password, and use this MySQLi_connect in order to connect to the database. when I have created my database name, username and password, and I just save it on some place on my computer. I just create a temporary folder or something, and then I can just call it connect example or something. I just call it connect. Sorry. Connect.php, like this. And then that file has been created here on my hard drive. And now I need to upload that file to the web server. Then I just use my PHP, my FTP program called WinSCP, which you see here. So here on the left side, I have my local files, and here on the right side, I have the web server location. So I want to just upload that file we just created, connect.php, to the server by just dragging it like this. And then I can go to my web browser in order to test that PHP file. So here I just open my web browser, and this is the URL for my web server. Of course, your web server will have an other address or URL. And then we was using this FTP program to upload this connect.php to the web server, as you see here. This is the web server location, and this is my local computer. So now I can just type here connect.php, click enter, and then hopefully we get some result here. And as you see, we got the following message: connected successfully. So this means that we have now been able to connect to our the MySQL database. So now we are ready to start creating the CRUD operations to read data from the database, insert data, update data, and delete data from the MySQL database. And since we are going to create multiple PHP files, we are going to create one for inserting data, one for reading data or retrieving data, one for updating data, and one for delete data. So in all these files we need to connect to the database, and instead of copying that code into multiple PHP code files, we just create a separate file called config.php or something, or you can call it database.php, where we put in the code for connecting to the database, and then we can just reuse that code by including this config.php file on top of our different PHP files. So that's a good trick. Then you don't need to duplicate this connection code into multiple PHP files, but we just put it into a separate file called config.php or something. And here you see how I have put this connection code into a separate file called config.php. Like this. So now we are ready to start creating the different CRUD files for create, read, update, and delete data from this MySQL database.